I'm gonna say three things. Firstly, the Bible says everyone has an understanding that God exists. Firstly, the idea that we are contrary to God, that is true, because we would rather live for ourselves, and we understand that if there is a God, there's probably moral accountability, like unless you're a deist, but there's moral accountability that comes with the idea of a God, and people know this innately. Like they realize, like, if there's someone in authority above you, and you know what's right and what's wrong, you probably shouldn't do what's wrong. So in one sense, yes, it is people, and this is true of human history. We do run from moral authority because we don't like to, like, basically have to obey things. But another sense is that in Western society, there has been a development of just rejecting God and trying to embrace secularism. So you could actually be raised in a home now where they will just say, like, they'll just try to make you reject God, and they won't explain to you that it's the reason we subconsciously do it is for moral reasons. Um, so yeah, I would say everyone knows God exists, and everyone has a conscience. So a lot of people will deny God because they don't want to have to obey what He says, because they have a conscience, they know what's right and wrong. But at the same time, there's an increasing number of people who are starting, like, they've just been raised being taught that God doesn't exist. God is just a fairy tale, stuff like that. So one reason is, yes, we some people want to reject God because they know there's moral accountability. Um, but then other people have been raised rejecting God. So not everyone's the same, but yeah, we like to run all sorts of things. Like if I'm not trying to work, like I'll probably make us some excuse. You know what I mean? So it goes for everything. It's not just with God. That's just our nature. We want to live for ourselves.
Yeah, a specific verse I could give you that really highlights just what Arthur was explaining was Romans 1:28, which says, "Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do ought not be done." So basically, if we reject God, which we all do consciously at some point, we have creation and conscience, which Paul talked about. We know God exists. At some point, we're going to choose either to turn to him or to reject him. If we reject him, then we're gonna have to answer all these gaps, our hole in ourselves, with something other than God. And that just doesn't fit because God can only fit the spot. So we're gonna be given into a depraved mind, which is really the multiverse, what it is. It's just trying to think of some fantasy to fill this spot of what could cause this complexity. Not a mind. I've rejected a mind. What could it be?
Multiverse of the gaps.
Yeah, multiverse of the gaps.
And
This
Steph,
multiplied chances multiplies absurdities.
yeah, and so one thing I'd say about the verse Ash talked about, it's interesting because it said that God gave them over to a depraved mind. If He's giving them over, their mind wasn't always depraved. They may have wanted to do wrong. And this says the wrath of God is revealed against all ungodliness and unrighteousness. So they're already doing ungodly things, unrighteous things. But there is a point in which they were given over. So um like just know that, like, not like people are given over. They don't start being given over. They still sin. We start sinning. That's how we are. We're inclined to sin. But it specifically says they were given over. So it's interesting. I think, yeah, just read Romans. It's pretty
Yeah.
it's intense. Very, very theological.